In today's video, I'm sitting down with my friend Sue from Garden Maxi to talk about seed starting, but in a very real life way. We're digging into how it fits into her current season, how her techniques have changed over the years, and what she's learned just by showing up and growing things again and again. And just a quick heads up, the audio changes a little bit at the very end due to some technical hiccups. Okay, after some technical difficulties, we're back again. We will make this video happen. Welcome again, Sue. I am so excited that you're here with me. I was trying to remember how long ago it was that we did that video. I know it was in the winter. Was it like 3 years ago?
I think it was about 3 years ago. Geez, it seems like just yesterday, doesn't it?
I know. And for those people watching, if you have no idea who my friend is, I'm going to link everything possible where she posts her amazing garden content. I found her longer than 3 years ago. It might have been at least 6 years ago, and I was hooked. For those people that have no idea who you are, Sue, share a little bit with us, what kind of gardens you have, if you have, a huge property, a small area in the city. What kind of garden you do?
Well, so we, at the end of May of 2025, so just this past year, we moved from an established garden in Michigan, which is when you and I first met. That's where I was gardening. And we moved from Michigan to Kentucky. So right now, the house that you see here is actually a house that we're living in temporarily because we're building a house on 20 acres. So I'm super excited to be able to build a brand new garden from scratch. It's going to be something totally different than what I've done before just because of the nature of the land. Obviously, I'm not going to make a 20-acre garden. I'll focus on working on the gardens that are close to the house, but it's super exciting. So the thing that was really hard, though, was that we moved into this house at the end of May. So by the time I got outside into the garden, it was June, and it was like already smoking hot here. And so I feel like I never had a chance to really garden last year because we did not intend to move when we did. So my mom had passed away in March. And when that happened, then it kind of, Tom and I are just like, you know what, this has always been our dream. Let's just go for it because, life is short. Because of that, like I had grown all these things from seed. I was trying like plants that I never grew before, and they were like just these beautiful plants. And then I had to leave everything behind. And then we came here, which it's just such a wonderful place. I'm so excited to be in Kentucky. Our neighbors are they're the nicest people. And I started to what I'm going to do here in the temporary garden, because it's probably going to take us at least a couple years to build the house. And so in the temporary garden, I am building a pollinator garden. And my intent is that, a lot of the plants I can take with me, but what I'm going to be focusing on this season, which I'm super excited about, is to be able to grow native Kentucky plants from seed. So since they're perennials and they need cold stratification, they're not going to bloom this year, which is fine because I'm really kind of this garden is going to be like a laboratory for a couple of things. First of all, I got to learn how to garden in this Kentucky clay. This is like a whole new thing. And I can understand why people complain about clay soil all the time. Although it's like a great soil from the plant point of view once you figure out how to deal with it. But it's very different. And when the soil on our property gets wet, it's exactly like people will tell you. It's like super sticky. You can't be walking on the soil when it's damp and stuff like that. So it's going to be fun to kind of like it's like starting. It's definitely starting all over again. Plus, it's going to be starting with a new kind of soil, so it's going to be very exciting.
Awesome. I am so happy for you, and I can't wait to see, what you do with everything in your temporary garden right now, which I am sure people, will love, especially with small homes. Tell me a little bit about the climate that you had in your old house compared to what you have now, because even though it isn't that huge in zones as far as change, I think that you really gain at least a couple of months of
Oh,
extra
I
growth,
think
right?
I think from what obviously I don't know for sure because I'm still, like I said, we moved at for essential purposes like the beginning of June of
Mhm.
2025. So I haven't been through a whole season, but oh my gosh, I think I'm going to get at least for sure at least a month, but I really think like it'll be like 2 months more of actual growing season, which is awesome. As far as the climate and the plants are concerned, a lot of the same plants. It's kind of exciting in a way because like a lot of the native plants are the same. So you've got the coneflowers and the butterfly weed. So plants that I'm familiar with growing, which is great. But it's one of the things that I always wanted to grow in Michigan, never could because it gets too cold. Although hopefully my holly trees aren't going to die during this season because it's gotten cold here too. One of the things I always wanted to grow were holly trees. They're like a zone 6. And even though Michigan is like where I was a zone 6B, I mean, there'd be no way because we've had like what's going on right now. The temperature gets so cold and
Mhm.
like to lose a tree or a hedge I would not be able to handle that at all. So it's exciting to be able to. And I actually, when we got here, one of the first things that I did, I kind of just the land that we live on is really steep. So the land here in the house where we're at, it's a beautiful suburban neighborhood. Typical suburban lot. Everybody's close together, and it's a small patch of land. But what's different for me is it's like the backyard seriously is very very steep because a lot of the land was grazing farmland. So it was interesting to be able to figure out, okay, without spending, a ton of money because we know for sure we're leaving, but at the same time, I don't want to be without a garden. So we came up with an idea of just making kind of like a little terraced area. So like on the first part of the slope, I kind of like cut in a little garden bed, and I'm purposely not doing any amending of the soil besides, the stuff that is always recommended. So when the fall leaves fell, I made sure that I mulched all that up and tried to get some stuff in the soil. But it's the perfect way to learn like what's going to grow and what's not going to grow. So I am really interested to see how the plants that I planted in the summer are going to fare, when it comes to springtime again, because it's like I said, it's much more windy here than it was in my other property, which is really interesting because that never was a thing for me, to think about. But it's been exciting to start fresh. So I'm pretty excited about it. And like I said, my neighbors are so wonderful. So it's been fun just to get to know new people too.
That is awesome. So let's rewind a little bit and let's go back to the first year that you decided to start things from seed, annual perennials. How was that for you? What made you decide I'm going to start something from seed? And how long had you been gardening already up until that point?
So when I started growing things from seed, I think it was really so I mean, like in the ancient days of like, I think it was 2007, we took our first trip to Europe. And when I saw those gardens, I was like absolutely floored. I don't know why it never occurred to me that you could actually build a garden like that, because you get so busy with, working and whatever. But when we came back, Tom and I were both so inspired by what we saw. It was so beautiful. And so I started doing what most people do. I got some garden design books from Penelope Hobhouse, who is like one of my heroes. And she has these great books that she wrote. She had kind of like some plans of gardens that she had in the book. And so I was going through and like learning what these plants were. And I really wanted to like kind of try to replicate something like that in my own house. You can't buy any of that stuff at the garden center. I mean, you really can't. And so that was like my first, oh, I really want to. So, like trying to search for these plants to try to get something to look similar. Garden magazines are the best because they're always inspiring you about something, right? And I remember that what struck my idea to actually grow plants from seed was I just read this. I think it was like only a one-page article. It's so funny. I can still see it in my mind's eye. And I actually brought a little example. So
Nice.
in this little article, it was a bigger pot than this. And this green pot is from like decades ago. And I bought it at Frank's Nursery and Crafts, which doesn't even exist anymore. The article showed this lady who was growing some plants from seed, and she had green pots just like this, which is why I have this green pot. It was just a little bit bigger, and she just showed how she put some soil. I didn't even know it was seed starting soil. Put some soil in there, and then she sprinkled on top of there, and then put some plastic and put the little rubber band, and then in the article, of course, it shows the seeds where they're growing, and I was like completely hooked. I started with shop lights like you have in the garage, like fluorescent shop lights. I think I had two that each had two light bulbs or fluorescent bulbs at the time. Didn't have any kind of shelves or anything like that. I actually remember I had like an old chair that like the top part of it was broken off. And I like rested part of the lamp on one of on this, and then I had
Yeah.
like a bunch of pile of books on the other side. And I'm trying to like get it so like I could get the most amount of light underneath it. But I mean, that experience, I was like, absolutely, I will never not grow plants from seed. I absolutely love it. That's how come, like, I love your channel. Like, you are so fun to, like, when you have all of the bootstrap farmer, like all those fun colors. And I'm like, Roxanne is my kind of gardener
Uh,
for sure.
how long did you had that set up before you upgraded? Maybe instead of having two fluorescent lights, maybe you had four fluorescent lights. How
Well,
long did that
it
take?
it took a while. I mean, I think that probably within the next, I'd say, geez, like 5 years. I grew plants under shop lights forever. It had to be at least 5 years, and exactly the same way in the basement, on the basement floor, glass blocks or books or whatever. They were literally, the lights were, this far off of the ground, type of thing. It worked perfectly for a long time. And I always wanted to get, for whatever reason, I thought that my life would totally change if I got plant like grow lights, and they were so expensive. And so, like, literally, I didn't switch over from fluorescent until like LEDs became very affordable. So, I mean, I would say that was, I'm sorry, I can't remember the exact timing. Once I really got into the whole seed thing, it wasn't, my setup changed, but like how I did it really didn't change that much. It was just like I wanted more space, and the LEDs made it like so much easier to have, like, you could have like multiple shelves, and then because they're a lower profile, you could get more shelves in there and stuff. So here in Kentucky, because I'm focused mostly on native plants this season, I'm doing tons of winter sowing. So I've got some of my stuff out there, out on the patio. I had some plants that I did I love to soil block. That's just how I start my seeds. Obviously, this worked just as well as the soil blocks, but the thing I like about the soil blocks is with the very small seeds, it doesn't to, like you can mix them with sand. Like the thing that helps if you mix them with sand and put them in a salt shaker, that helps to make them so they're not like real thick. I love the soil blocks because you can like, it's easier to have just like one plant in one block. So like when it comes time to divide everything, you have less collateral damage, if you will.
Yes.
So, but I had already started a few weeks ago, started some soil blocks with some seeds. And then, because the seed wants to be in the soil or wants to be like in a damp paper towel or something, which I did not realize. Like the first time I ever tried to do cold stratification, I'd like took my seed pack and I put it in the refrigerator. And I thought, and of course that didn't work. Well, I mean, you don't know. It's so obvious. Like I found now, like the best way to learn, if there's a seed or a plant that you can't grow and it grows and reseeds itself in your garden, like when you're not even trying, like you need to think about what happens during the time from fall until the springtime in that area where like that plant grows. And I mean, it's so nature, if nothing else, nature and gardening is such a humbling experience. And our plants survive despite us most of the time. But I remember last season, I tried to grow Verbena bonariensis the same way I always do. Couldn't get it to germinate. I cold stratified it, couldn't get it to germinate. So then I'm just like, okay, whatever. This is a lost cause. I took my soil blocks because I'd been waiting for them to germinate. Literally just took them from underneath the lights and I put them out on the patio and, it got cold a couple of days there. And the next thing I know, they're all germinating. So it's like, okay, so that's a good lesson.
What were some of the challenges, looking back in your first couple of years when you had those fluorescent lights and you started growing from seed in your basement? What were some of the unique challenges that you had with that setup?
So my challenges are exactly the same as they are now. For me, I think getting the seeds to germinate now, besides primroses, for whatever reason, the primrose has eluded me. I cannot get primroses. It doesn't matter if I winter sow them. It doesn't matter if I follow my friends' step-by-step instructions and they can like get them to germinate. That is like one of the seeds that has eluded me, but I am able to get, and like I have to really pay attention once the seeds germinate. Because for me, in my opinion, getting them to germinate's the easy part. It's like from the time they germinate until they got to go outside is really when you have to you have to pay attention, because like all it takes is one forgotten day or 2 days and letting them dry out or what have you. And that can kind of damage some plants. I mean, that's happened before, just because especially when my folks were sick, that 1 year I had, and that was just obviously because I had much more important things to do than worry about my tomato plants. But yeah, so to me, it's like once they're germinated, taking care of them properly until that your little baby plants can go outside. But I love it. It is so exciting to see. To me, it's so exciting when a seed germinates, and I was so excited to be able to grow plants from seed with my mom before she passed away. And my mom is where I learned to garden when I was a little girl. And what was so fun about my mom is that, again, it reminded me of just the joy of growing plants and how exciting it is. And so we planted a whole bunch of seeds because in 2024, I did like a little seed starting challenge on Garden Moxie. And my mom was part of that, of course, and she was super excited to be part of it. But I will never, ever in my whole life forget when my mom was in her room, we had planted some feverfew in a pot like this. And when those little seeds, like just were the tiniest little green plants, oh my gosh, I was so excited. But so like when I went to the windowsill to look at them, I'm like, oh mom, look, the plants have germinated. And the look on my mom's face was like just utter joy. And it was like, and that's again, I mean, I love gardening and of course, my mom loves gardening. But like, I just realized like how wonderful growing plants is. It really is. It's good for all of us, I think.
Oh, I love it. I love that you had those memories with your mom and
Oh,
just have
I am
gardening in
too.
the middle of it.
I am too. And my mom was like the one thing my mom has inspired me to try more of is because my mom was a painter. So her sense of color, she would have like what I considered like the strangest color combinations, but they were so artistic, like the way that I always loved to see and go visit my mom when she lived in northern Michigan because she like as she got older then, before my dad passed away and she moved downstate, she always had like a little window box, and then every year she would plant something a little bit different, and it was like I was always amazed at the stuff my mom would plant. And it's like, I really do need to get a little bit more adventurous with trying new things.
That's awesome. You mentioned you throw there that you also like to use soil blacks. What do you think for yourself with for the way that you start seeds? What do you think is the advantages of using soil blacks versus using pots, or do you prefer one or the other for certain things?
So I only use the small soil blocks and I only use them to start the seeds. I do have soil blocks that are bigger and they work great. For me, I just as soon pot them up. So I use the small, tiny soil blocks and then I'll pot them into the next size pot. It's the easiest way to not get seeds all jammed up together so that you gotta, lose a lot of plants when you're trying to separate them and sort them out. I was never even with like using the salt and pepper shaker, which definitely was a huge improvement for seeds that are super. I'm talking like flowering tobacco seeds, those
Yeah.
super tiny ones. You want them to start off really healthy, and then like once you like gotta pull them all apart and stuff, it just seems like it causes so much trauma. I just like the soil blocks because it's easy to just take the little soil block and then you put it in the next size pot and then you're off and running.
I love that you said that because I can see that you're making those two techniques work for you and the way that you like to do things, right? I often find a lot of people saying, choose one or the other, or no, this is better because X, Y, and Z. I think that just using them and making them work for you for the way that you're doing your own plants outside, I think that that's really amazing.
Gardening is like the best creative exercise. It's so creative. It's like gardening is art. And I'm serious when I say that. I mean, like, I think that it's such a great creative outlet. Yeah, there's guidelines and there's rules and there's things that work and things that don't work. But at the end of the day, like, if you give 5 gardeners the same box of plants and go tell them to go plant them in the garden, you'll have 5 totally different looks. What you add to your garden, I think, is the thing that makes every garden so special. And it really is like such a creative force. And you know what? It's like just whatever works for you. You don't have, there's not just like one way of doing anything. That would be like saying there's only one way to paint a painting. Yep, there's proper techniques and all that stuff, but you can do whatever you want to do at the end of the day.
Is there a part of starting seeds from the process of getting the seeds to harvesting, whether the cut flowers or the vegetables? Is there a part of it that you really dislike?
Not not really. I mean, the only thing that's nerve-wracking, that time when they go from being inside to outside. You know your frost dates and stuff like that, but then like once you get them out in the garden, like if all of a sudden it's going to frost, it's like a panic situation. I always, when I was in Michigan, I did like there's only like a 10 or 5% chance that it'll ever get below freezing. Like that's when I set my plants out because it's just too nerve-wracking otherwise. But for me, the thing that I love about, so I'm really into like historic gardens, historic gardeners, and reading really old, semi-old and like really old gardening books. I think there's just so much wisdom there. And also the fact that they're just written so incredibly well. I mean, it really is humbling to pick up a book from like the 1890s and just to read it for how well it's written. But I love the story of the seeds, like this, how did this seed get here? Who originally grew this seed, kind of thing. And I read this great book, and I actually like brought it just so that I can show this book from Vita Sackville West. She wrote a newspaper article. So for those that don't know, Vita Sackville West is one of the people, her and her husband created Sissinghurst Castle Garden in Kent in the UK, which is like a world-renowned garden. She wrote a weekly article for the Telegraph, and they ended up publishing these books, right? So last year I did this winter garden design book club, and it was one of the books that we covered in there. I had never read it before. And oh my gosh, it's like the best book. Besides the fact that, I mean, it's like great little articles, but she was so excited about plants and like in the book there. And of course, because it's proper horticulture, it's all the Latin names. So it's like when I would read through, it would be like, I don't recognize any of those plants. And one of the plants that I am the most excited to grow again this year is one of the plants that I learned about in this book. And I have a little picture. So I'm hoping you can see that. So this is a plant that's called, let me see if I can pronounce it correctly, Phacelia campanularia. So this is also the common name is desert bluebells. And she talks about it in the book like, oh, if you really like, true blue blooms, and she gives like a list of these 3 different plants, none of which I said, I didn't know. So like I looked them up, and like this packet is from Stover Seed Company. And I'm like, oh, come on. Like I looked at the picture and I'm like, oh, come on. They can't possibly be that blue. Well, this was one of the plants that I grew when I was still, like I had to leave them in Michigan. I planted them into my garden and they bloomed before I left, and I planted them out in the garden. I'll share pictures with you of what they look like. Totally that blue. I couldn't believe
That's
it.
awesome.
They were the bluest flower I ever saw. So I love just like learning, like reading the old books. And then to me, I thought it was like so cool. Okay, so here I am. I'm trying to grow the same seeds that she recommended to people in 1947. That's when the article was written. And just like thinking about like how many people read the article that probably also like tried growing those seeds. I just think it's kind of cool.
I just love the passion that you have for doing really anything garden related, because it's contagious. Like I just feel like I want to go out there and get some books and read about this and see how many more seeds I can add to my collection. So for the people that maybe want to jump in and start growing vegetables, flowers from seeds, maybe they even got inspired by watching you now, trying to look into their native plants. What would be the advice that you are giving them for, maybe there are some that didn't have their best first year last season, and they're just ready to throw in the towel? What would be the advice that you will give them?
Well, a couple of things. So there are certain seeds that are easier to grow from seed. They don't require cold stratification. Heck, you don't even need to start them under lights. I mean, zinnias are the best example of that, right? In my Michigan garden, I would just plant them directly into the garden. So like, once once it started to get where it was a little bit warmer, just direct sow them right into the garden. And then, then it's amazing to me, like, you got this tiny little seed and it just turns into this amazing plant. I think the thing to remember is if your plants don't germinate, there could be a lot of reasons that aren't related to you to you at all. And I'm reminded of, I tried a new, this was a few years ago now, but I was like, kind of similar. I love the experiments you do with the soil, by the way. I love that. You're doing such a great job with that, which is now why I use Vermont compost. Thank you, Roxana. But I remember I was trying different soils. And I'm going to tell you that one of the soils I used, yeah, it like, you could tell the difference. Like, had I not done the side by side, I would have thought I did something wrong. I overwatered. I mean, it looked like these poor little seedlings were overwatered or something, but it was the soil. So I would just tell people, like, if you tried and you failed, well, you got to try again because, well, if you want to. If you don't like growing plants from seed, not everybody likes growing plants from seed. There's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with going to the garden center and buying your vegetables already started to grow. There's nothing wrong with that. I think sometimes people try to make it seem like there's only one way to do things, kind of getting back to that whole artistic. There's 1,000 different ways of doing things. So, but if you are somebody who really wants to grow from seed and you didn't have luck, you know, just try it again, or try growing something directly into the garden. It kind of gives you a little bit of confidence, and then then you try different things.
I love it. I really appreciate you spending some time with me today and talking seed starting, because I can go for hours just talking about everything that the garden has to offer. Thank you so much, Sue. And I will make sure to add all the links where you can find my friend. And if this video inspire you, please let her know. Go to her channel and let her know. Thank you so much for being here today.
Oh, thank you so much, Roxana. It's always a pleasure to talk to you.